Hey, what's up everybody? This is Eric, and I just wanted to talk with you today real quick about this awesome new update that came out for the Elektron Digitakt version 1.3. So many cool things in this, just in an update, which is great. And it adds to a bunch of the other things that I've discussed in some of my other videos. And I'm actually going to redo a couple of the comparison videos because this kind of ups the ante for all of the different competitors out there as well. But just real quick today, I want to talk to you about what's in this update and what are the main features and how they're going to impact, the way I use it for sure. Today, we're just going to talk about the main features that were updated in this, and some of them more important than others, but some of them will really impact my workflow personally, and I want to talk about those ones specifically. So the first big update was being able to route an external input into the Digitakt. So the Digitone could do this already, and when I did my video, which I'll link up above here, about how I use the two together, that was one of the reasons why I ran from the Digitakt into the Digitone, is because it's the only way to really do that and then have one set of outputs, and then you can use the effects in the Digitone for the Digitakt. Now you can do it the other way around. What's cool about this is that the Digitakt has a master compressor, so now whatever you run through that, you can run through the master compressor as well as the other effects. So you can run one stereo in or two monos in to the Digitakt, which is great. And then another thing that's cool, besides being able to add the effects to it and everything, is that you this can then be routed to the audio over USB output. So for example, if you route an external synthesizer into this that is not regularly an audio over USB device, you can run it through the Digitakt, and then the audio over USB can go out into your DAW if you're using a hybrid system. Also, with this external input and being able to route it through the effects, it allows you to also sample the affected signal. So you can add on all of the different effects that you want to add to that within the Digitakt, and then you can sample that and instantly have that available on a track to be able to use. So this is actually really great for people who like to resample when they're performing live. You can resample external things that are coming into the Digitakt quickly and assign them right away to a track, and then have them available to either play in chromatic mode or to be able to be sequenced using the Elektron sequencer. Another big update in 1.3 on the Digitakt is universal effects and parameters. So you now have a menu where you can assign or not different effects to be used universally over all of your different patterns. And what's really cool about this is, for some, you may not want to use them as much. Like for example, I like to use the effects a lot to link between patterns and use them as kind of a bridge between patterns. So I don't always want them to be the same. So I might not activate those ones, but I might want to activate things like the global mixer or the global compressor, so that I can have a similar output sound from each one of the patterns without having to go in and change all of those parameters each time. Or if I change those over the course of, one pattern, I will have those globally change when I go to the next pattern, all the ones that are enabled for that. It's really cool to be able to go from pattern to pattern and have your sound be uniform from one pattern to the next without any kind of big changes in things like the mixer or the compressor. These assignable global parameters are also assignable to the external signal that's coming in as well. It's really interesting to be able to use these now within the Digitakt as a performance tool. Now, speaking of performance tools, this may or may not be big for some, but for those who use the Digitakt as a performance device, one of the things that was always a little annoying is that if you were using one of the menus and you had gone into a second level or a sub menu of a certain parameter, then you switched to a different parameter to adjust that. When you came back to the one you were just adjusting, it would reset to its default page, to its default menu. Now it has something that you can check in the settings. So if you would like it to remember that last page that you were on when you go back to it, or that last sub page, you can just check the remember sub page and it will allow you to go right back to that, which is really handy when you're in a performance and you want to toggle back and forth between a couple of different parameters and use them quickly. It saves you a whole bunch of menu diving and allows you to get to them really quickly, the ones that you were using before. Now, one of the updates that was really huge for me is they added a second filter, and this filter is a bass width filter. And what's interesting about this this is I love to use the Digitakt to mess around with samples and to turn them into different things using single cycle waveforms, using it kind of like a synthesizer in that way. And what's cool about having this second filter is it used to be that I would use the one filter that was there maybe to cut off some low frequencies or cut off some high frequencies depending on what I was doing. And that made it so that I couldn't then use that filter for other things. And so once you're using it in the kind of sound shaping, sound design part, it made it so that you couldn't use it as a performance tool afterwards. Now with this bass width filter in there, if you want to cut off low frequencies or cut off high frequencies, you can cut those already and leave that there. You still have your regular filter with frequency and resonance and all of that stuff to be able to use as a performance tool. On the flip side, you could do it the other way. If you wanted to use your the kind of more traditional filter and use the resonance and the frequency and things like that, or a different type of filter, you wanted to use that to shape your sound, you can then still use that bass width filter as a low pass or a high pass as a performance tool and include that in your global effects. So allows a lot more flexibility having two filters per track. Also included in this new filter that they added in is kind of an EQ filter, so you can choose certain frequencies and you can boost or cut those. If you have a certain specific frequency, for example, that you want to emphasize, this can be really useful in sound shaping as well. And it makes the Digitakt even more of a sound shaping and sculpting kind of synthesizer without a synth engine. And it's something that I like to do with it anyway, and this just improved on that functionality a ton. Another feature that's really great when you're looking at how you can manipulate your samples within the Digitakt is being able to tune samples down even farther than you could. It used to be that you could go to plus 24, minus 24. You could still go to plus 24 on your samples, but now you can go down to minus 60, which means it allows you to pitch things down, slow them down much more, and kind of twist and morph those samples a bit more. It allows this to be more of a real sound design tool. Now, going along the idea of sound design, one of the biggest new features that they added, and this one is actually really huge, is they added a second LFO, which more than doubles the capability of what this can do, because not only can this second LFO affect something different from the first LFO, which is cool, and that makes it so that you can do a whole bunch more cool movements and kind of morphing over time and things like that. But one LFO can also modulate the other LFO. And so what that does is it allows you, we've always been able to kind of use the Digitakt as a synthesizer by using single cycle waveforms. Now you can kind of use the Digitakt as an FM synthesizer by having one of those LFOs modulate the other one, very much like you would with FM synthesis. So really opens up a whole new world of sound shaping and sound design and sound sculpting within the Digitakt. A couple of other features, a little bit less important to me, but cool nonetheless. You can now dim the all of the LED brightness of the screen as well as the backlights of the buttons. You can dim those down. So there's, I think, 3 different settings in those, which is great. So if you're in a dark club, you can dim it down so it's not like super bright in your face. Or if you're out in the sun, you can put that brightness back up again so you can see it a bit more on the screen. The menu graphics have improved as well. Within the LFOs, you can actually see the waveform. You can move around the phase of the individual waveforms, and it shows you within the graphics now where in that phase you are. So that's also really cool. Within the filter, there's a function for off. So if you want to turn the filter completely off, you can see that you don't have any filter affecting anything, which is great. Also really nice to know when you're performing and things like that, to know when it's completely switched off. So a bunch of new kind of cool improvements in the graphics. And then there's also multi-track step recording. So you can set it up so that each one of the tracks has its own individual sound, and then you can step record from that, so you can bounce around. I saw a really cool tutorial online which showed a way that you could have each one of those steps be different notes, and you can bounce around between that and have it do a melody just with step recording. Also really cool. A lot of really interesting ways that you can use this, and I think that's kind of the overarching theme of this update, is that it just opens up a whole new world of things that you can do with the Digitakt. It was always a pretty deep machine compared with a lot of the others in its category. And this just opened up a whole new world of sound design for one, which is something that I'm very interested in, as well as modulation with the LFOs and things like that. Who this update is really going to be exciting for are people who are into sound design and people who want to use the Digitakt for more as a standalone machine. And if you're new to this and you haven't seen what the Digitakt can do kind of as its base features before this new update came about, I did a dive into the Digitakt versus the Digitone pretty recently. I'll link that up here up above so you can take a look at that one and you'll get some more information about what it could do. That will need to be updated, which I'll do now just with this new firmware update that came out, because there are a bunch of things that were kind of drawbacks about the Digitakt that are now no longer drawbacks. So they've now kind of come up to scratch with everything else. So if you got something out of this video, go ahead and hit like down below, subscribe to the channel if you're not already. I'll see you in the next video. Take care of each other and keep making music. Peace.